Today, the Great Depression 2.0, the DFA Daily to the 3rd of September 2020. Hello again, I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to the latest post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. The Australian recession is the deepest since the Great Depression of the early 1930s. The economy shrank by an extraordinary 7% in the 3 months to June, by far the biggest collapse since the Bureau of Statistics began compiling records in 1959. The previous record was minus 2% in June 1974. And yet, by international comparisons, the contraction is relatively mild, with the UK down 20.3%, Europe down 12.1%, the US down 9.1%, and Japan down 7.8%. Treasurer Frydenberg told a Parliament House press conference that in March his advisers were predicting a collapse 3 times as big in the June quarter at 20%, and in May the forecast was for a June quarter collapse of 10%. Consumer spending represents around 56% of GDP, and a 12% contraction in consumer spending explains 98% of the overall contraction in the GDP. Spending on goods was barely hit, while spending on services collapsed 17.6%. The components of consumption which were most adversely affected were transport services down 86%, accommodation services down 77%, catering services down 56%, recreational and cultural services down 52%, and health down 20%. Given that consumer spending climbed not at all over the 3 quarters leading up to the June quarter, it meant that household spending fell over the entire financial year for the first time since records have been kept. It could have been much worse, though. What staved off a collapse of the order feared was unprecedented government support, more than $100 billion in JobKeeper and expanded JobSeeker payments alone, enough to actually lift household incomes while 643,000 Australians lost their jobs and many, many more lost hours. In fact, household gross disposable income rose by 2.2%, largely reflecting the boost in social assistance benefits. The hours worked fell by 9.8%, although wage incomes declined by only 2.5%. That gap is explained by the JobKeeper subsidy payments, which were used to maintain the wages of workers who experienced a significant reduction in hours worked. With the lift in household incomes and the collapse in spending, the household savings rate roared up to 19.8% from just 6% in the March quarter. And the ABS said if household income from special initiatives, including early access to super, were included, the household income ratio would have been even higher. What it calls the household experience savings ratio would be 24.8%. Now, it's worth noting that during the depths of the global financial crisis, Australia's household savings ratio climbed to a peak of 10.9% as households squirreled away $1 in every $10 they earned. In June, they squirreled away a remarkable $1 in $5 that came in the door. Now, it's possible to see such high household savings as a glass half full, which of course Frydenberg does, but it might also represent concern and caution, and I think this is more plausible. Other components of expenditure were weak, reflecting the recession conditions, but not, frankly, spectacularly so. Business investments fell 3.5%, including a fall of 6.8% in machinery and equipment, and a partially offsetting rise in infrastructure investment. Residential construction fell by 6.8%, and real estate activities fell by 18.6%. And in fact, we hear more and more about real estate agents on JobKeeper. But the lags from recessionary conditions in the June quarter will continue to impact businesses and their investment and housing for the remainder of the year. Now, possibly a better measure of living standards, taking into account households and businesses' so-called real net national disposable income per capita, fell by a record 8%. And of course, the Treasury will deliver the budget in a little over 4 weeks' time. And he said a key part of it will be measures to make it easier for businesses to do business, unlocking entrepreneurship and innovation at low cost. Businesses certainly could invest more. Non-mining business investment was down 9.3% in the quarter. And on Tuesday, the Reserve Bank made available an extra $57 billion at low cost for banks to advance to businesses and households. But they are only likely to want to invest more if they can see returns, and many businesses are still not able to access the support that they need. Exports fell by 6.7%, including a 24.6% fall in travel services and a 46.6% fall in transportation services, while imports fell 12.9% as the international border closures triggered a 98.7% fall in travel services and a 32.9% fall in transportation services. Overall, though, net exports contributed 1 percentage point to GDP growth. Now, the growth outlook for the remainder of the year will be dependent on the success which governments manage to achieve in containing the virus. September is frankly looking flat at best, so now the attention will be turning to December. But that depends on the virus and whether Victoria will move through to a stage 2 in December quarter, while other states avoid any damaging second waves. The upcoming federal budget on October the 6th does provide the government with another opportunity to reassess and reset policy support. The annual budget will undoubtedly be expansionary. The question is the degree of additional stimulus and the form that it takes. But to me, the real question is, will people become scarred by this whole experience, hitting confidence further, and therefore will be unwilling to spend? And frankly, this seems to me to be a real possibility, judging by our recent focus group discussions. And if that is true, then Depression 2.0 could be just around the corner. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.